We are live. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. It's been a couple of hours, if that, had some dinner, and we're ready and raring to go for one more qualifying session in 2025. Miami. I mean, it delivered in the sprint race, and qualifying yesterday was pretty exciting too. So I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be continuing on the ridiculousness level that we have seen so far in Miami, and going to be a very, very interesting start to the full Grand Prix dinner that we get across a sprint weekend. Just watching the end of the F1 Academy race as a safety car currently, but it is dry, so it's going to be a little bit of a change. And a few incidents going on. There's a safety car actually going on at the minute. It was the Charlotte Tilbury car that got wiped out, I think. I've only literally just joined in. I can just see the Charlotte Tilbury car at the end of the pit lane, so I'm assuming. But hello. Hello, Evil. Hello, Clara. Hello, Pro6651. Sally in the chat, of course. Do I think Hamilton will shine again? Did he shine? I think there was a few drivers that got a little bit lucky. The kind of tyre change from intermediate to softs very much played out, or slicks, I should say. Not everyone went for softs. Definitely played a role in quite a lot of those drivers. Oh no, it wasn't the Charlotte Tilbury car. Or was that another safety car? Goodness me, it's all going on in the F1 Academy race, but let's focus in. As I say, I think you can say that Hamilton got a little bit lucky. A little bit lucky, you know? It was one of those things where they went early, the Ferrari team. They had less to lose because they had... Well, Hamilton was already in 7th place, so I guess they had a little bit to lose. There was a couple of points there, but when you're Lewis Hamilton, 2 points on the board over the course of an entire season, it's not really going to make that much of a difference, you'd hope, and therefore, realistically, they didn't have much to lose. Went for the early call, went onto the soft compound tyre. It was clearly quicker, and then got a little bit sort of fortunate in that Verstappen was involved in an incident, gained the position there. A few of the drivers waited a little bit too long. You could argue got a little bit unlucky that Lando Norris kind of got the safety car in his favour, although Oscar Piastri also lost that because of that too. So it was a bit of a weird one for Lewis Hamilton. But yeah, definitely a better performance, at least in terms of strategy, and did good enough to get 3rd place. Fastest lap, of course. Not too shabby at all. What did I think of the Verstappen penalty? I think it was very much warranted. Like, he was released into the side of Kimi Antonelli's car. I know that the Mercedes garage is just in front of the Red Bull garage, but if there's a car in the pit lane and it's coming into box, it has right of way. So, unfortunately, Verstappen there, and the Red Bull team really should have held Verstappen back for, what, a second or two, and then released him once Kimi Antonelli had already peeled into his box. And that is just a hard and fast penalty, especially if you smash into the side of your competitor. You haven't really got much to stand on there as Kimi Antonelli's trying to get into the pits and you hit him. And it cost Kimi Antonelli way more than it cost Max Verstappen, didn't it? You know, well, it cost them equally, I guess, because they both dropped out of the point scoring positions. Kimi Antonelli ended up 10th. Max Verstappen ended up 17th. Yeah, not a lot. Have we heard anything about the Alonso Lawson incident? No, we haven't, which I think is really odd. It was said to be investigated after the fact, but I haven't seen anything come in. I'll be honest, I have disappeared to have dinner, so I haven't been keeping on top of absolutely everything that's been going on. But I think if you look at the Miami Grand Prix results, there you go. Behrman does drop out of the points after being hit with a penalty for unsafe release in Miami 5 minutes ago. So it is hot off the press. Yeah, Ollie Behrman dropping out of the points. But that again was for an unsafe release. And therefore, Liam Lawson, anything about Liam Lawson? Liam Lawson? Nothing at the moment, just the Behrman unsafe release. But maybe they are still investigating those as we speak, because as I say, that's only popped up on the F1 website, but when I clicked on it 4 minutes ago. So now Ollie Behrman dropping out of the points. That does get Yuki Tsunoda a point. So Tsunoda goes into P8. Not too shabby, I guess, considering he started in 20th place. What do I think of Norris's form? Interesting. I think he's just really struggling to... I mean, he's said himself, like, if you want to know about Norris's form, luckily he's the best person to ask, because he is super honest about anything that goes on behind the scenes at McLaren, isn't he, Lando Norris? And he even said he was very lucky. He enjoys the fact that he gets quite lucky in Miami. Second race in a row where he's won it because of a perfectly timed safety car. And yeah, I think he knows that that wasn't him finishing above Piastri isn't exactly the way that it should have gone. And had it not been for that lucky safety car, he definitely would have finished behind his teammate. So I think Lando Norris knows he is still not quite as quick as his teammate, and Piastri is having the better start to the season, and Piastri is leading the World Championship for a reason. But maybe we'll see Lando Norris have a little bit of a turning point. It needs to happen fairly soon. Like, it's not completely done and dusted yet, is it? Even though Piastri has won 3 races to Lando Norris has won, because of that spin in Australia, it's kind of opened the door a little bit for Norris to stay within touching distance for now. Had that been a second place in Australia, we'd be looking at a very different championship table, wouldn't we? So 1 point swing in the Miami sprint is not going to be the decisive factor at the end of the year, in my opinion. So I think Norris knows that he needs to improve. Piastri, I think he said it himself, he doesn't want to buy a lottery ticket anytime soon in Miami. Never seems to get the rub of the green compared to his teammate when it comes to the Miami Grand Prix weekends. And Lewis Hamilton on the podium, as we've kind of discussed before. I think we also have to heap on the praise continually for Alex Albon. The fact that he just keeps delivering in that Williams car. The fact that every time it feels like, well, maybe there's something that could go a little bit wrong for him here. The fact that, you know, his intermediates and going on to slicks, and will he get it in the right position? And will Williams be able to judge it right? Because Williams have a lot more to lose. You know, we talk about Lewis Hamilton going early and just having nothing to lose when it came from pitting in 7th place. Alex Albon and Williams have quite a lot to lose. You know, they couple of points is quite dramatic for them, and a couple of points can make a big difference to those teams 5th and beyond on the grid, because that top 8 is so competitive, or top 7 at the moment. Yuki Tsunoda just about sneaking into the top 8 today, but not so much throughout the season. So that top 7 doesn't allow the teams behind to score that many points very often. So Albon getting it right, Williams getting it right, and finishing in 4th place ahead of a Mercedes, ahead of all of their other competitors. You know, I know Stroll and Lawson and those kind of teams also picked up a few points here and there, but the fact that Albon was still best of the rest out of those, very, very impressive from Alex. Like, really, really does need to be applauded for what he's been able to do. Do you think you could create a new state of matter with 50 years and $5 trillion? No. No, I don't think you understand states of matter. That you can't really create them. They're not like magic. Anyway. Do Do you think he would get the ball helmet luck? That is the thing, isn't it? It's the ball helmet. Keeps going for him. The basketball less luck, I guess. Beach ball, lot of luck. And now it's looking like disco ball is as lucky as beach ball. So, fridge opening meme. What are you guys on about? A lot of people a little bit mad in the chat. Hello, Rogier or Rogier. And hello, what is that? How are we doing? Making our way further down. Russell, I think, will be frustrated with fifth. Stuck behind Kimi Antonelli for a bit. You know, I think as soon as his teammate was in front of him, he really started to try and show his dominance as the number one in the team, didn't he? Kind of really... It was one of those things, it was just like, should have been probably given the opportunity to pass. Mercedes were a bit lackluster, in my opinion. Although it kind of played into Russell's favour because Kimi Antonelli therefore got to pit first. But actually that was a bad thing because then he got hit by Max Verstappen. So that could have easily been roles reversed and George Russell could have been the driver that was hit by Max Verstappen, which would have been a lot more of a talking point, wouldn't it? Considering the history that those two have had. So Russell did finish ahead of his teammate once again and fifth place overall. But I think Russell is well within contention for pole position when we go into qualifying. You know, if Kimi Antonelli could sneak a pole position yesterday in sprint qualifying, George Russell surely has to be right up there into contention with pole position for this qualifying session today. And actually, the Mercedes looking pretty quick, especially as the cooler conditions come around. They are running that car incredibly low. There's been a couple of people pointing that out. I think it was Oscar Piastri sort of questioned how on earth that Mercedes are kind of getting away with the car being so low to the ground. So we'll kind of see what that's like in terms of plank wear. And maybe we'll see another disqualification because of plank wear this season. We saw a few in China. Lance Stroll picking up another 3 points. Now on 13 for the season as well. Lance Stroll can be very, very pleased with himself at this moment in time. Should have been Alonso, really. Alonso was doing well, got up into the points, but Lance Stroll does the business, you know. Just seems to be able to, whenever that Aston Martin has even the tiniest opportunity to do anything, Lance Stroll seems to be the one getting it. Liam Lawson finishing 7th place. Taking out Fernando Alonso, I'm not sure how that isn't a penalty. I haven't seen any confirmation of any penalties yet for Liam Lawson. I'm keeping everything open and like refreshing tabs to the side of me, especially because Ollie Behrman was only given that penalty about 10 minutes ago. So I'll keep it open, but haven't seen anything yet about Liam Lawson possibly getting a penalty. Will Carlos Sainz be able to qualify today? Should be able to. I think all of those cars, Alonso, Sainz, Leclerc, should be ready and raring to go. They were all rushed back to the garage pretty swiftly after the Miami sprint race. And the teams are usually very, very quick when it gets there. I know, that's what I mean, Poggers. Like, I can't believe he didn't get a penalty either, unless that penalty is still pending. But I haven't seen anything yet, and I'm kind of refreshing the FIA Twitter, and I'm refreshing the F1 website, but there's nothing as of yet. We got that unsafe release, though, for Ollie Behrman, so I'm wondering if it is going to come up. Ollie Behrman got that unsafe release penalty. Max Verstappen, unsafe release penalty. And that is all we've got so far. Yeah, Liam Lawson. Sporting code incident between cars 14 and 30. It is under investigation. I haven't seen anything come along. everybody in the comments of that post as well is saying that it should be a clear penalty. It just seems like the stewards are taking their time with a few of these decisions today. Like the Ollie Behrman infringement did only just come through, so we'll keep you up to date. Yeah, it is still pending, but no penalty as of yet. No Leclerc in qualifying. Surely they should have been able to get that Ferrari prepared in time. I haven't seen anything saying that they haven't been able to get that Ferrari going again. So Leclerc should be back. I mean, it wasn't an amazing sprint qualifying from him yesterday, so even if he does qualify, will he be that competitive? I just don't think the Ferrari is... I know Hamilton got the podium, but I think that was more the circumstances than the pace. Just don't think the Ferrari is there this year. Just really don't. I think Ferrari is the 4th fastest car. Well, the Red Bull is a weird one, is it? The Red Bull is like the 6th fastest car in the hands of anyone else other than Max Verstappen, and is the 2nd or 3rd fastest car in the hands of Max Verstappen. So, like, Red Bull find themselves in a weird slot, but Ferrari, I think, just not quite sitting right at this moment in time. Dorian Pan taking the win in the F1 Academy race. I do like the Mercedes suit this weekend. Very, very Miami, very pink. Max finishing out of the points. Yeah, I know. For the first time since 2016. Which, I mean, goes to show that Max Verstappen is imperious. and just whenever he is in that car, as long as the car finishes the race, he finishes in the points. It's a hell of a streak. And you know, the penalty was clear, and you could argue that the penalty again is not Max Verstappen's fault. So a bit of a disappointing one for Max to get, but rightfully a 10-second penalty, in my opinion. The Red Bull isn't terrible with Yuki driving either. It's around Williams' pace. Yeah, but Williams' pace is not winning race pace, is it? I think that's the thing. It's you can't I mean, Williams pace and expect to win constructors championships, which they did for 2 years in a row. Beyond that, still waiting for anything on the Liam Lawson thing, but can't see anything yet. The documentation for Ollie Behrman's penalty came through 40 minutes ago on the FIA official website. So maybe we're still pending on the Liam Lawson one. Nothing wrong on the Verstappen side. Team just made a mistake. Exactly, yeah. No, it's not Verstappen's fault at all. He's been told to go, so he goes. And he can't really, like, if you look in the wing mirror, you can't really see down the pit lane because your team is in the way. Like, he's got 7 or 8 engineers on the left-hand side of the car there. So Max can't see what's happening in the pit lane. He just pulls out. Kimi Antonelli's there. There's nothing he can do about it. And then they collide. And to be fair, then Max had half a front wing for the rest of the race. So didn't help his pace by any means. 10-second penalty kind of put final nail in coffin, didn't it? 10 minutes to go. There is indeed 10 minutes to go. Carlos still not comfortable in that Williams. It's trending in the right direction, though, isn't it? It's trending in the right direction. You know, you look at Australia, that was a real shambles. Then puts it in the wall, didn't help, I guess, but has slowly kind of gotten better. Last time out in Saudi Arabia was pretty good, I would argue. And then, and in fact, got the better of Alex Albon in Saudi Arabia. So definitely trending in the right direction there. I think just Alex Albon, with the experience that he's got in that car, with the ability that we know he's got, he is just able to get that little bit more out of it. And you kind of expect that at this point in the season. I think it's whether or not by sort of halfway point, so by, let's say, 12 races into the summer break, which is 14 races in, whether or not Carlos Sainz is still too far off, or whether or not he can kind of get that little bit closer to Alex Albon in terms of general pace inside of that Williams car. Like, we were all expecting it to be a bit more of a battle, weren't we, in terms of the point scoring. I think that's mainly because we weren't expecting Albon to get this many points this early on. So if Carlos Sainz is going to finish ahead of Albon, he's got a hell of a run in to try and get ahead of him. Midfield is also interesting this season. I think midfield is often kind of a little bit more interesting than the top four. Sometimes you just see driver run away with it. There's a clear kind of second, third fastest and a clear fourth fastest. Sometimes there's even a clear fifth fastest. You know, you look at Aston Martin over the last couple of years, they've just been clearly the fifth fastest, and it's been pointless kind of putting anyone else even in the mix. I sometimes think, you know, the battle for fifth, sixth, seventh has a little bit more jeopardy to it, just because the points are so low. When the points are so low and you need 3-4 points to completely change your season around, like we saw with Alpine last year, I think that just increases the tension and increases the jeopardy in those point scoring places. Whereas, like, already you're looking at George Russell, who's fourth in the driver's standings, being more than a win off of Oscar Piastri. So he needs Oscar Piastri to have a DNF and George Russell to win the race, and he would still be behind him in the championship. So the jeopardy just isn't quite there with the top drivers, especially. I mean, that's the point, right? It's supposed to be there. And they're just showing a little bit of the replay from the sprint earlier on. Luckily, it has dried up. Hello, Josh, once again. Got lost playing Minecraft. Love that. Retro. Haven't played Minecraft in ages. Maybe. I do always think whenever I'm just like sitting here gaming, which isn't often, but sometimes I find myself in a little gaming hole, whether to stream those kind of things. But then I don't know whether it'd be that exciting. I'm not very good at games. I just quite enjoy them sort of wind down of an evening. But you never know. Maybe I'll throw them up on Twitch at some point. See what we think. Alpines are weird. Gasly has shown some promise. Yeah, Alpine are... I don't know if Alpine are kind of starting to look at the 2026 season, sorry. Just seems like they're a little bit adrift of where they really want to be. As you say, Gasly, we were expecting maybe a little bit more at the start of the season from Gasly. So, Gasly's in a weird spot, isn't he? I think he was kind of expecting to be best of the rest this year, and then the Williams have come out swinging. Haas have been here and there. You know, Ollie Behrman has actually had a really good start to the season. Ocon scored points in a few races too, and then you're looking at Aston Martin are always kind of going to be there or thereabouts, especially with Lance Stroll this year, apparently. When's the qualifying starting? In about 20 minutes. So there is a little bit of a delay on qualifying, just because after the sprint race was delayed due to that red flag, they then also had to get the F1 Academy race in between the sprint and the qualifying. So that F1 Academy race also then had some safety cars and some delays to it itself. So we now have the Formula One cars back in the garages, the Formula One mechanics back in the garages, the F1 Academy cars moved out of the way, and therefore we're starting to see the F1 drivers making their way into the garages too. The battle of the discard RB drivers, Williams versus Gasly. Yeah, it's very true. In fact, like, Isaac Hadjar has had a really good season so far as well. Like, the middle pack is good. And I suppose, yeah, as you say, the middle pack is a lot of Red Bull either rejects or just drivers that couldn't quite fit in around Max Verstappen. Like, I wouldn't say Carlos Sainz was a reject. I think Carlos Sainz just realized he was never going to be the number one. Like, he was never going to be sort of more important to the team than Max Verstappen. Albon, I guess you could say, is a bit of a reject. Gasly, yeah, definitely. But again, sort of stuck around in the sister team for long enough. It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Because actually, Red Bull have kind of proven that they do know how to spot good talent, because a lot of the drivers that are now on the grid, yes, they're ex-Red Bull, but they did come through the Red Bull Academy and they are quite good. So, like, Red Bull are pretty good at finding good drivers. It's just when they have those good drivers, they don't often give them the actual opportunity to be good for an expended period of time and then get up into the top team, because when they do go into the top team, the car is so difficult to drive. Max Verstappen is so good that nobody seems to really get too much rope. And when they do get enough rope, they just hang themselves with it and get sent back to the sister team. VCARB probably the most disappointing in the midfield. Should be way higher than where they are. Yeah, that's very true. They've thrown away a lot of points. A lot of points. They just they go for weird strategies, don't they, at RB, that they really don't need to. But I don't know. I think they kind of go all or nothing, don't they? They often go, right, we're going to go for the outside of the box strategy. If it pays off, we'll look like geniuses and we'll win the race. But oftentimes it doesn't pay off. Like, the reason that nobody else has gone for that strategy is because it's not the optimal strategy and you're kind of hoping for a little bit of luck. And when that luck doesn't come, you do just look pretty stupid. So it's a weird one with VCARB or RB. They always kind of do it. Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin car has been put back together again. What is the second best car on the grid this year? Well, statistically, the Red Bull in the hands of Max Verstappen. So a little caveat there. But then also the Mercedes in the hands of George Russell and, to an extent, Kimi Antonelli. I think Ferrari are clearly fourth right now. But again, it's knowing the balance. I don't know. Second best car, I would say the Red Bull. But only in the hands of Verstappen. Which shouldn't be the case, right? You should be able to make a car that looks at least comparable in terms of pace for both drivers, but it most certainly does not. It's a good question though, Dark Builder. Very good question. Dead short overkill, sorry. Lando Norris is the best YouTuber. I don't know. It's Quadrant. For me, Quadrant has gone down a weird direction in recent months and years. Oh. Charles Leclerc has just been hit with a penalty. Continued on track with significant and obvious damage. So Charles Leclerc has been reported to the race director and heard from the driver and team's representative over the following matter. Charles Leclerc, breach of Article 26.10. Decision, reprimand. This is the driver's first reprimand of the 2025 season. So a slap on the wrist for Charles Leclerc for actually trying to get his Ferrari back to the pits, even though it... Oh! Alex Albon has a 5-second time penalty. Driver did not stay above the minimum time set by the ECU under the safety car. Breach of Article 55.7, 5-second time penalty imposed after the sprint race for Alex Albon. And just as I am a curse this weekend. Genuinely a curse. Like, every driver I praise is slowly being whittled down. So Alex Albon, this just popped in 3 minutes ago, an infringement under the safety car, 5-second penalty. So Alex Albon drops I was just like, Alex Albon still finishes best of the rest. Alex Albon, 4th place finish, hand him loads of praise. He now drops out of the points. Kimi Antonelli back up into the point scoring places. So Ollie Behrman, 5-second penalty. Albon, 5-second penalty. So Sonoda and Antonelli all gain a position. And then Lawson, Stroll, Russell also gain a position as well. Yeah. So Albon out of the points. Why hasn't qualifying started? Because of the delay. Qualifying is delayed by about 15 minutes because of all the red flags and safety cars that we've had throughout the sprint race and also throughout the F1 Academy race as well. So yeah, let's just talk about, I don't know, don't you dare praise McLaren. Yeah, I'm really throwing it under the bus today. I was praising, Isaac Hadjar in sprint qualifying yesterday for being the best rookie so far this year. And then Kimi Antonelli, I suppose that was a good curse in that Kimi Antonelli then went and got pole position. So like clearly proving me wrong and being like, yep, I am the best at out of the rookies so far this year. Oh, and then we've got the reset. So the track is being now set up for qualifying. The reset of the timing sheets. Although I'm keeping an eye on these penalties because they are still rolling in from the sprint race, which is insane, isn't it? The fact that we're about to start the next session and we still haven't got full confirmation of who's who. Oh, and there's confirmation. Liam Lawson. The stewards have received a report from the race director. Car number 30, driver Liam Lawson. The fact, car 30 collided with car 14 in turn 12. Decision, 5-second time penalty imposed after the sprint and 1 penalty point given out to him as well. Okay. Hi, Dan, F1, no skill. That is not quite me, but we are good friends. Me and Dan had a lovely weekend together. We were sort of the two new guys that went to this EA event. We had a lovely morning in a hotel. Separate rooms in the hotel, should point out. But yeah, me and Dan no skill had a lovely couple of days away with one another. So that is Liam Lawson with a 5-second penalty. So Lawson drops out of the points. Behrman with a 5-second penalty and Albon with a 5-second penalty as well. So 3 of the drivers that were in the points come the end of the sprint race now drop out of the points. We also knew that Max Verstappen dropped out of the points as well. So 4 out of the 8 drivers that finished in the points on the road dropping out of the points afterwards. But there is the confirmation that we were kind of expecting, but glad that it's finally there. 5-second time penalty. It does seem like quite a small time penalty, but I guess because it finished under the safety car, any time penalty kind of completely drops you to the back of the grid anyway, so it doesn't matter. Maybe is why they've only given it a 5-second penalty. I think in the actual race, I'd have liked to have seen that been a 10-second penalty. Had the race not finished under a safety car, and it might have actually played into the reading. Where do I get all of these penalties? I'm just looking at the FIA website, the official FIA website. What time is quali? In about 10 minutes time. There is a little bit of a delay on quali just because of the red flags and safety cars and so on, but that's luckily so because we actually have a completely different finishing order to the sprint race that we had earlier on today. Let me find the track board just for a moment. And then maybe I can pop these actually on the screen. Here we go. Can we see that? Let me zoom in a touch. So, infringement for Liam Lawson, 5-second penalty, and a 1 penalty point, which means he's got a total of 6 for the last 12 months. That is a little bit sketchy for Liam Lawson. Needs to be a bit better behaved. Obviously, they do fall off once you've had 12 months. But if he gets 12 out of 12, that will be a race that he'll miss. Who on earth would Red Bull put in to replace Liam Lawson for a race? Maybe Awasa for a race, I guess. That would be interesting to see. There's Charles Leclerc's penalty, or infringement, I should say. Only a reprimand for Charles Leclerc, so no actual penalty for him. There is the confirmation of Alex Albon's penalty, 5-second time penalty imposed after the sprint. And then also Oliver Behrman's penalty, a 5-second time penalty after the sprint. But as you can see by these tweets, this one for Liam Lawson only came through a minute ago. So we could have actually been in a position where we would have started qualifying. Had there not been a delay to the start of qualifying, we would have started qualifying and still not known the actual final finishing order for the sprint race, which is mental. Like, imagine the fact, like, you finished this race, you've then started the next competitive session, and you didn't know where you finished in the sprint race. So, like, Alex Albon is probably in the car. Like, he's maybe not in the Williams car yet, actually, but at least close, and he's being told. Or especially Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson is probably on his way, getting ready, probably putting his race suit on and helmet, and has just been told that he's been given a 5-second penalty. Mad. Absolutely mad. But they are the world that we live in right now. Oops, that's the wrong one. There we are. Absolute insane. Anyway, we're only 7 minutes out, so I'll get rid of the FIA Twitter, because surely no more infringements can come in. It has to be done now, right? You'd hope. So, yeah, that does mean Gasly is in the points. Should we see if they've updated the final results for the sprint then? So 2025 Miami sprint. Oh, no, not yet. Oh, there we go. No, it hasn't updated yet. They've still got Albon in 4th place. As soon as it's fully updated. But yeah, Albon drops out of the points. Lawson drops out of the points. Behrman drops out of the points. So Tsunoda, Antonelli, and Gasly all slot up into the points scoring places. So that is the penalties. Obviously, we had Max Verstappen drop out. That already happened. They managed to get that one done within the actual sprint race itself. Then we had Albon get a penalty. So Albon drops from 4th out of the points. That means Russell and Stroll go up to 4th and 5th. Then Lawson, Behrman also drop out of the points. Lawson with a 5-second penalty, Behrman with a 5-second penalty. So Tsunoda, Antonelli, and Gasly move up into 6th, 7th, and 8th. So Tsunoda gets 3 points, Antonelli gets 2 points, and Gasly picks up a point as well for the sprint race. Wow. There we go. Stroll P5, yeah. Jumps up to P5. Russell up into P4. Doesn't affect the top 3, so luckily they'll get to keep their rewards. But Stroll having an absolute blinder. Not picking up any penalties, finishing in 5th. Hamilton can win a podium if he starts 5th tomorrow. I think he's going to need a little bit of luck, like we saw earlier on in the sprint. I just don't think the Ferrari's there. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's kind of, I would expect, if I had to predict the podium right now, I would go for Norris, or I would go for Piastri win, Norris 2nd, Russell 3rd. think from the pace that we've seen of the cars so far this weekend, that should be similar to what we get. Obviously, weather, safety cars, as we saw in the sprint, can play a massive role in changing that all around. And then penalties, because, you know, Albon, Lawson, and Behrman have all just dropped out of the point scoring places, despite finishing in them in the sprint race a few hours ago. So that is a quick summary of all of those penalties for you. All a little bit weird. And yeah, hopefully not something that will happen for the actual Grand Prix, because that would be awkward. Have I read the Adrian Newey book on F1 cars? I have not. I don't really read, which is bad, isn't it? I tried to get into reading. I started reading. In fact, if you got any recommendations for like good books to get into reading, that would be great, because I really did try. And then I bought a couple of books, and they're now in storage because I was supposed to move house like a month ago. More than a month ago now, like 6 weeks ago. And I'm still here. So my whole life is just in storage at this moment in time, to the extent where, like, it's now getting towards the summer. All of my shorts and t-shirts are all in storage. So I'm going to have to actually go to get them, which is really annoying. So I have not, but if you do read it, that would be amazing. And I'll add that to my list of books that I need to read. I don't really read. I've read 12 books. I read 1 3/4 last year, and I thought that was going pretty well. So I'd like to get into reading. My girlfriend's so good at reading. Like, she just rattles through books, audio books as well. She's just there listening to stuff, becoming, you know, a more deep and well-rounded person. I just like to watch Formula One, deal with the issues that come towards me by watching the cars go around in a circle. Anyhow, let's get involved as qualifying is about to get underway. We're a couple of minutes. Hello, Gamer Rohan. Of course I remember you. You were only here a couple of hours ago. It's not too long before. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let's get into the quali board. The detailed one. No live timings as of yet, but we're about to get into it. Wow. Which track is in my background? That is Singapore behind my head, although a slightly out of date Singapore, although will be back in date once the grandstand is built. Just buy books that are like 50 pages and read them in a day. Yeah, but that doesn't count. That's cheating. I don't want to cheat myself, you know. I want to really do. Yeah, I know what you mean, Josh. I'm kind of in that same boat. Although I don't watch that much stuff either. I'm not really just not really doing much at the minute other than working and relaxing, just sort of staring at the ceiling when I get home. Have I seen the McLaren Singapore hoodie? Oh, I have not. From Hollister. I don't know if there is a Hollister in Norwich. Yeah, there is a Hollister in Norwich. He says. Maybe I'll have a little look. Have a wander around a Hollister. But let's get into it then. 18 minutes on the clock. Qualifying to get underway. Drivers already in the pit lane. Just waiting for that green light to come. And a real queue, actually, at the end of the pit lane. I think everybody realizing that, well, yesterday, a lot of the drivers missed out in Q1 because of the traffic. So how many penalties in total? There was a penalty for Verstappen, there was a penalty for Albon, penalty for Lawson, and a penalty for Behrman. And a reprimand for Charles Leclerc. But That was the sprint. This is the real deal now. We're into the big boy qualifying for the weekend. Gabriel Bortoleto is going to be the first man onto the track. In fact, I just realized I forgot to set my timer to the correct thing. So it's going to be a little bit off, but I'll just reset it very swiftly. So I've got everything open. No investigations as of yet. Luckily so. Considering how many investigations have just come in from the sprint race, wouldn't surprise me if we are there. Hello, Hunter. Not applicable. Notice me. You get highlighted in the chat whenever you sort of talk in the chat for the first time or mention somebody. It's very high-tech chat I've got myself here. I can see people. Bortoleto then coming around turn 16 at the moment. Hulkenberg following him. So it's going to be the two Stake Sauber cars to get us underway. Gasly, Doohan, Stroll, Alonso, Sainz, Albon, Hadjar, Lawson, Behrman, Ocon, and Tsunoda. Cars that are out on track. The Ferrari of Charles Leclerc just being released from the garage as well. I'm sure Lewis Hamilton to follow, or is Lewis Hamilton ahead? Hamilton was actually released a little bit earlier than his teammate. Bortoleto already coming around then. Let's keep an eye on Gabriel Bortoleto's lap times. We are allowed to use the soft compound tyre for this first qualifying session, unlike in the sprint. So we will see a little bit of a difference to the running order. And I'm imagining there's going to be a few cars that are better off on the soft compound tyre. For instance, that car there, Pierre Gasly, disappointed with his qualifying for the sprint. Although he does now nab a point from the sprint race, he'll be looking for more from the Grand Prix. As a Charles Leclerc fan, what do I think? Who do I think will win this weekend? Not Charles Leclerc. I apologize to sort of burst that bubble. Keep believing, though. It's never a 0% chance. But as a McLaren fan, I'm hoping not. Tell us the weather on the track. Weather is clear at the moment. It is at the top of the screen, so you can see the track temperature, the air temperature, the humidity, the fact that there is rain, no. Up the top there. But yeah, not raining. A little bit maybe overcast. It's not. But still pretty warm, to be fair. Oh, incident involving Alex Albon noted. A pit lane infringement for Alex Albon already. Just picking up some more penalties as Alex Albon. Pit lane infringement is the only details we've got so far. I'll keep you up to date on that one. Bortoleto not quite as quick as Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg top of the timing sheets for Pierre Gasly, only third fastest so far of the drivers, but they're going to start rattling through the time checker right now. Jack Doohan goes to the top of it with a 128.2. Lance Stroll only good enough for fifth at the moment. Max Verstappen has just gone quickest of anybody through the first sector in his Red Bull. Fernando Alonso, though, goes to the top with a 128 dead. Not quite getting towards the times that we saw yesterday in that final sprint qualifying session. Alex Albon, the first driver of this session to get into the 127s with a 127.8. Carlos Sainz has gone third fastest in his Williams as well. Of course, we're just looking for the bottom 5 drivers, but we don't really know who will be there yet. Minimed JD, I missed you too. Here comes Oscar Piastri as well. Piastri not quicker than Verstappen through the first sector. Verstappen still quickest of anybody through there right now. Alex Albon was quickest through the middle sector until Oscar Piastri has just taken that from him. And Max Verstappen is going to go to the top of the timing sheets with a 127.5 for now. Oscar Piastri still to come, though. Hamilton goes quickest of anybody through the final sector of the lap. There is still 5/10 adrift of the Red Bull. Here comes Oscar Piastri, and he gains 2.5 on Verstappen. Lando Norris was quickest of anybody through the middle sector and only third fastest overall, as it's a little bit of a tricky final sector for Lando Norris, but good to see that we've got a bit of a mix. We've got Verstappen quickest in the first sector, Norris quickest in the second sector, Piastri quickest in the third sector, so nobody absolutely dominating the racetrack at the moment. Kimi Antonelli decides to pit without having set a fast lap time, possibly a little mistake from the Italian there. Here comes his teammate George Russell also into the pits. So both of the Mercedes cars were out on track, were on fast laps and decided not to finish them. An interesting strategy from the two Mercedes drivers there. It does mean Hadjar and Lawson are the only two to have not set lap times, but also haven't been out on track. Bit of a weird one. I suppose Russell and Antonelli were on used tyres, so maybe they were just trying to see whether or not they could get through with used soft compound tyres, but maybe that wasn't the case. So Antonelli and Russell coming into the pits, actually straight in and straight out once again. I'm new to the sport. Where do I see these stats? These are powered by Multiviewer. Or, you could just watch the stream. They'll always be here. I'll always be here for every competitive session. Here comes Oscar Piastri back into the pits. Currently quickest with a 127.3. Was a used set of soft compound tyres as well on the McLaren car. George Russell now joining the queue at the end of the pit lane. Is starting to become quite a queue, actually. Hadjar and Lawson also yet to have set lap times. Lance Stroll, the slowest driver so far. So Lance Stroll, 16th fastest. Here comes Isaac Hadjar down the back straight towards turn 17. Is there a little mistake from Isaac Hadjar here? Oh, no. I think this is where Alex Albon jumped in front, and that might be the little infringement that they were talking about. Alex Albon sneaking in front of Isaac Hadjar in the pit lane when Isaac Hadjar was already in the fast lane. They're arguing that Hadjar had priority. So that is under investigation as we speak. But Isaac Hadjar is going around at top speed anyway at this moment. Hadjar through the first sector. Let's say where he lines up compared to the rest of the cars. Just needs to get himself out of that bottom 5 for now. And only a few hundredths off Oscar Piastri's first sector time. So pretty good from... And it's going to be investigated after the session, that Alex Albon infringement in the pit lane. They do love an after the session discussion here in Miami, and it takes them a little while to get through them as well. We didn't get confirmation of the sprint race penalties until qualifying was due to start. Isaac Hadjar, a 10.5 off of Oscar Piastri. Still a good chunk of time, but if he can get himself where he's kind of expecting to be, he's going to be right up there, Isaac Hadjar. And very clear of that bottom 5, which is where he needs to be. Here he comes across the line. And he was looking like a very good lap. And I told you, Isaac Hadjar slots into second place. Still a lot of time to play with. 8 minutes still to go. But that is a very, very quick lap from Isaac Hadjar there. Just to set the standard for the rest of the midfield runners and even some of the front runners. Fernando Alonso goes across the line and does better, goes up to 6th place. Carlos Sainz goes quickest of anybody as he comes across the line. So the lap time's starting to tumble now. Sainz a 27.0. Who's going to be the first driver into the 26s? Will it be this man? Kimi Antonelli took pole position and... oh, not quite. Still a 127, but the quickest 127 we've had so far. 0.02 of a second quicker than Sainz. Gabriel Bortoleto goes 5th fastest of anybody. Liam Lawson comes across the line 6th. And this is the thing, the track evolution is still here in Miami, and everybody's going to want to try and come across the line as that last man. But as we saw in sprint qualifying 1 yesterday, that can mean that you miss it. If the checkered flag drops and you haven't come across the start-finish line, then you don't get to set a lap time. Here comes George Russell, 7th fastest. So George Russell still not having that edge on qualifying pace compared to his teammate. Did have the race pace there. Oh! And Lando Norris having to get out of the way of Yuki Tsunoda there. And Lando Norris going to start a flying lap. Tsunoda needs to improve and does. Goes up to 9th. So Tsunoda 4/10 off the pace of Kimi Antonelli. Max Verstappen, his teammate, though, has just gone quickest of anybody. Leclerc across the line, 9th fastest. Hamilton to follow him, 15th fastest for Lewis Hamilton. A really poor final sector from the podium sitter earlier today. Verstappen going quickest of anybody in the first sector. Let's see as he comes towards turn 15 and 16, how it looks through that middle sector for Verstappen. Still 3/10 up on Kimi Antonelli's time as he comes through the middle part of the lap, Max Verstappen. So this is going to go to the top unless something really goes wrong in these final few corners for the current world champion. Lando Norris has just completed his first sector. It's not quite of the level of Max Verstappen, although Verstappen's middle sector was not the fastest of anybody. Verstappen goes 2/10 quicker and the first driver to get into the 126s, as we were expecting the drivers to be able to do. Lando Norris had a really poor middle sector and hasn't actually improved upon his previous middle sector time. Lando Norris is going to still improve his overall time, though, you would imagine. And does indeed. Goes 5th fastest, but it's 4.5 off Max Verstappen's time. So still a little bit more to come. And a bit of frustration possibly for Lando Norris there in making a little mistake possibly somewhere in that middle sector. Seems very uncharacteristically off the pace, that middle sector. And there was the front left lockup for Lewis Hamilton, which cost him nearly 4/10 of a second. And that's why Hamilton is now sitting in 15th place. There is still 4 minutes left to go, but they probably weren't expecting to have this much pressure on the final lap of Lewis Hamilton's qualifying here in Miami. He's got one more run to make sure he's not dropped into that bottom 5. Ocon, Alonso, Gasly, Stroll and Behrman, the 5 drivers that need to improve the most. 2 Hasses, 2 Aston Martins, and the Alpine of Gasly actually lower than the Alpine of his teammate Jack Doohan at the moment. Hamilton, Hadjar, Tsunoda, Leclerc will all be under pressure as well as Jack Doohan. Hulkenberg, Russell, Lawson looking a little bit safer, but you wouldn't say completely and utterly through. Everyone will want at least one more run at it. The new look Stake Sauber car there. And Gabriel Bortoleto makes the same mistake as Jack Doohan yesterday. Coming out of the garage, doesn't quite turn enough and nearly puts his Stake Sauber into the pit wall. He's going to get out in one piece just about behind Jack Doohan there. Seeing George Russell coming around in the Mercedes. can George Russell improve? Ninth fastest at the moment is George Russell. And just starting another flying lap. Lando Norris and Gabriel Bortoleto in the way of one another. Bortoleto trying to come out of the pits. Norris trying to get back ahead of him. Hamilton needs a better lap, and he is just making his way to the end of the pit lane. He's got 2 minutes and 20 seconds to make sure that he gets around, starts his lap. Tsunoda also behind him. I think Max Verstappen, the only driver sitting pretty in the pit lane and deciding he's had enough for this first qualifying session. He'll come back for the second part of qualifying. George Russell sliding around in that Mercedes car. Doesn't quite look as planted as it did yesterday in sprint qualifying, it has to be said. Although Kimi Antonelli was still able to get a good chunk of time out of his Mercedes car. Antonelli looking so swift in qualifying, picking up that pole position in the sprint qualifying yesterday. Didn't have the race place in the mixed conditions, but not to say it won't be different if the race is dry tomorrow. George Russell comes across the line, third fastest for now. George Russell. Here comes Ollie Behrman then in the Haas. Massively needs to improve. 20th fastest at the moment. It's only 19th for Ollie Behrman. So that's going to be him out of qualifying in the Haas. Charles Leclerc is just coming around the final corner. Lando Norris again having to get out of the way of somebody finishing their lap as he comes around turn 17. Here comes Charles Leclerc. It's only 9th fastest for Leclerc. A 1:27.4 could be right on the edge of what the cars are capable of doing. Gasly does improve. It's only 15th for Gasly. Lewis Hamilton having to get out of the way of Isaac Hadjar, who's making his way around. He's currently 13th fastest, and the Frenchman looking to improve. Goes up to 6th, much better from Isaac Hadjar, and gets himself out of that debate as to whether he'll slot into the bottom 5. Surely Piastri has come into the pits as well, decided against another lap. Here we are then on board with Lewis Hamilton. He is 16th fastest at the moment. Pierre Gasly, the driver, ahead of him, and Gasly has finished his lap. So Gasly might just drop out. I think Russell is invisible on the map. Oh, really? I haven't actually looked for Russell yet on the map. It's always George Russell. Seems to lose connection. Something going on inside of that Mercedes team. Jack Doohan goes quick enough to drop his teammate out and into the bottom 5. Fernando Alonso's only 15th, the fastest now. Tsunoda is also under a lot of pressure. He's in 14th at the moment. Hamilton and Ocon are both on laps. So Hamilton is improving as well. Surely Hamilton will get his Ferrari out of that bottom 5. Gabriel Bortoleto up in 9th place is a very, very solid performance from him. Esteban Ocon comes across the line 13th. So Ocon is going to be tight because Tsunoda is still on a lap 2. Gasly has dropped out. Alonso has dropped out as well. Hamilton gets up into 8th place. So that does put Yuki Tsunoda now down into that bottom 5, but Tsunoda on a lap just behind, and Tsunoda goes 9th fastest to put Nico Hülkenberg down into that bottom 5. Lando Norris on the radio hit the wall on the exit of turn 16. So has he bumped the wall? Is there a little bit of damage on that McLaren car? Doesn't look like it at the moment. Was still good enough for second fastest, was Lando Norris's final time, although we were spending a little bit more focus on the bottom 5, which were in the end Nico Hülkenberg, Fernando Alonso, Pierre Gasly, Lance Stroll, and Ollie Behrman. So, oh, and it was bouncing around was Lando Norris. And yeah, just a little kiss of the wall for Lando Norris's McLaren through turn 16. I think the sort of more disastrous part of the lap was actually through turn 14 and 15, was bouncing all over the road, was Lando Norris. That would have been where he lost those 800ths of a second that stopped him from going top of the timing sheets for now. Hamilton and Tsunoda both leaving it incredibly late as well, but both getting through. It was very, very tight, wasn't it? Very tight indeed for Lewis Hamilton, but he's there nonetheless. Max Verstappen, best of the drivers so far. Then Norris and Piastri, Russell, Albon, Antonelli and Sainz. The Williamses do seem to be right up there when it comes to those first qualifying sessions. A shame that Carlos Sainz couldn't do that in qualifying 2 yesterday. He's going to get the opportunity to do better this time around, though. Carlos Sainz into Q2 once again. Alex Albon, after losing out on those points after the sprint race, will be looking to get back up into the points once again for the Grand Prix and rectify the loss of those 4 points. He's up there. Hamilton and Tsunoda, as I mentioned before, left it late, but did get into 8th and 9th place. Isaac Hadjar would have been good enough to get into Q3, but we do have one more round of qualifying. Q2, we'll see Gabriel Bortoleto, Charles Leclerc, Jack Doohan, Liam Lawson and Esteban Ocon try and break into that top 10. Hülkenberg, Alonso, Gasly, Stroll and Behrman will not be given the opportunity as they are out of qualifying. So it's again tense. Verstappen's doing much better than I thought he was. You know, as I said at the beginning, if I was going to pick a top 3, it would be Piastri, Norris, one of the Mercedes. I said George Russell, but Kimi Antonelli seems to be on fire right now when it comes to qualifying. So maybe Kimi Antonelli in there, but you can just never say never when it's Max Verstappen, can you? A 26.8 is a very, very solid opening gambit in Q1. Maybe even an Alex Albon or a Carlos Sainz. Could they sneak towards the top 3 places? I'd be very surprised, but I'd love to know what you guys think. Who are going to be the top drivers in Q3? And actually, which drivers are we going to lose in Q2? Charles Leclerc surely will be able to get himself up a little bit higher than 12th place. Ocon, Lawson, Doohan definitely have their work cut out for them. And a look at Pierre Gasly. And actually, Gasly getting impeded by a Ferrari. Well, not necessarily impeded, but traffic for Pierre Gasly meant that his Sector 1 wasn't as clean as it needed to be. And oof. Hülkenberg, Alonso, Gasly, Stroll. Having a little look at the Albon moment, the infringement of Alex Albon. And yeah, Hadjar is moving. And Albon hasn't actually crossed the line. So Albon does force his way in the pit lane. So the stewards are going to be looking at that. So Alex Albon might get another penalty after missing out on those points. Might get a grid penalty for that pit lane infringement. It'd be harsh. I don't know. I wouldn't like to speculate on what the stewards will give that kind of infringement from Alex Albon, but I think he does move in front of Isaac Hadjar in the queue in the pit lane, even though he shouldn't have really done because he wasn't over the white line in the pit lane before Isaac Hadjar moved into that space. It's a bit like an unsafe release, but just happening in slow motion because all of the cars are in a queue in the pit lane anyway, but still can't be released into the side of the car that is already in the pits. And Lando Norris actually, kisses the wall twice over the course of his opening qualifying gambits. But let's get into Q2 then. 15 minutes will be popped onto the timer. And 15 minutes to run. Yeah, both of the McLarens under investigation. Maximum delta times, although we had a lot of those yesterday and nobody picked up any penalties for them. So I wouldn't expect those to kind of be anything, because as I say, we had 6 or 7 of those yesterday in sprint qualifying and nothing really came of it. So we'll have to wait and see. Ferrari having flashbacks of 2020. Zach Brown also appreciating the swiftness of the 2 Mercedes cars. So he doesn't think that McLaren are absolutely guaranteed to be on the top 2 spots here in Miami. Of course, he'd never say it, would he? Never say it. Always be humble, just in case you are humbled. Here come the drivers then. We have got some drivers already going. Verstappen is going to set the standard once again. Quickest in the last qualifying session and now going once again. Tsunoda also just behind him. So the 2 Red Bulls first out of the garage. Ocon, Leclerc, Bortoleto, Sainz, Hamilton, Hadjar, Lawson, Albon, and now Piastri joining the racetrack. And Verstappen is just coming around turn 17. So we'll keep an eye on the Dutchman as he starts his qualifying lap and again sets the standard, sets the bar for the rest of the field. Lando Norris just coming out of the pits and moving out of the way of Verstappen. Verstappen going to be running through this little bit of traffic, but Piastri moves out of the way now, so doesn't have to be behind somebody through the really twisty stuff of 5, 6, 7, and 8. Albon a little bit further down the road as well for Verstappen, so he's got a nice little bit to run into. Can't say the same for Yuki Tsunoda, who's been in the dirty air of Lando Norris through turns 4, 5, 6, and 7, which will impact him just that little bit. Lily going to be an 8-time world champion. Lily who? Who is Lily? Oh, yeah, I got you. Lily Verstappen. I was like, well, that is such a weird thing. But yeah, I suppose. Sector 1 and Sector 2, quickest. Max Verstappen, even though a few drivers have now finished Sector 1 just behind. Max Verstappen coming around the final couple of corners, then 18 and 19 weave into one another quite delightfully. And it's 26.6 from Verstappen. Just a couple attempts quicker than he was in qualifying 1. Yeah, I know it's Max's daughter. I forgot she was called Lily for a moment. She's very new to this world, and I was just very confused. And just as Charles Leclerc comes across the line and goes 126.9, much better from Leclerc. Tsunoda was 3rd fastest. Ocon has to slot into 4th. Carlos Sainz has just gone quickest of anybody through the middle sector. Can Carlos Sainz put himself in and amongst it? Couple attempts off Max Verstappen. Not too shabby at all from Carlos Sainz, who is trying to redeem that time from yesterday. Liam Lawson just coming down the back straight in the RB. Both of the RBs still amongst the drivers in Q2. Lawson, 5-second penalty for hitting Alonso. Took him out of the points in the sprint. Can he get some points tomorrow? He will if he starts and finishes in 8th place. But not likely to stay there as he is 6/10 off of the back of Esteban Ocon's time. Oscar Piastri is going okay through Sector 1 and Sector 2. It's not Max Verstappen levels of quick. Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris, though, has just gone quickest of anybody through the middle sector. And I completely take it back. Oscar Piastri just goes 3.5 tenths quicker than Verstappen. How has he done that without going purple in any of the sectors? Lando Norris just gone second fastest, 2.5 tenths. Maybe Piastri's sector times were not logging through as fastest, because how has he gone 3.5 tenths quicker than Verstappen with none of the fastest sectors? That's insane. Antonelli comes across the line, third fastest, ahead of Verstappen as well. So it's Piastri, Norris, Antonelli for now. George Russell only 11th. George Russell, not where you'd expect him to be, considering his teammate is up in third spot. Ocon, Doohan, and Lawson, the drivers joining him in the bottom 5 at the moment. No lap time for Isaac Hadjar as of yet, and I don't think Isaac Hadjar is out on track either. So they are the bottom 5 at the moment, and Russell is amongst them. Gabriel Bortoleto will be rubbing his hands together if it finishes like this. He was 100th of a second quicker than George Russell, and that 100th of a second would be enough to get him into that top 10 and through to Q3, but of course still 8.5 minutes to play out here in the second qualifying session of Miami. The pink helmet of George Russell making his way back to the pits, and something needs to change on George Russell's car. Not just the tyres for him to go a little bit quicker. And Oscar Piastri is already setting some very quick lap times. Antonelli's kind of matched his pole position time from yesterday at 26.6, doesn't he? But Piastri and Norris already quicker than the pole position time from yesterday's sprint qualifying. Just goes to show, like, the track evolution, the drivers getting more used to the circuit as they bed in throughout the weekend. Both of the McLarens quicker than the pole position time for yesterday, and it's not even Q3 yet. So this could be very, very interesting indeed, and we could possibly be seeing some lap records broken around Miami time and time again. Max will pull something crazy at the end. Yeah, never count out Max Verstappen as well. Always in the mix. Whenever you seem to think, oh, maybe it's not the weekend for Red Bull, he just suddenly comes up with something pretty amazing. And he'll have the bit between his teeth as well, considering he dropped out of the points and down into 17th place in the sprint earlier on today because of the finish behind the safety car and the 10-second penalty. So if there's something you don't want to do with Max Verstappen, it's kind of give him more of a reason to be even quicker inside of that Red Bull car. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton both on the radio at Ferrari, just looking at their deltas, knowing that they probably need to improve a little bit more. Charles Leclerc 7th, Hamilton 8th at the moment. But you'd assume that Russell's going to improve. Ocon in the mix as well. Lawson and Hadjar, you would expect to have a bit more in the bank, considering where the RB car has been so far this year in terms of qualifying. Definitely not over yet when it comes to this Q2 session with 6 minutes on the board. Lando Norris looking at his qualifying form. 1st, 3rd, 2nd, 6th, 10th. It's not been amazing over the last couple of Grand Prix for Lando Norris. A top 3, top 4 start for tomorrow would be just what the doctor ordered to put Lando Norris' season back on track after winning the sprint race earlier on today with a little bit of luck going in his favour. Bortoleto then. The tyre blankets are off. Hamilton also staring at the timing sheets. Charles Leclerc's car is prepared and let go. So the burst of cars into the pit lane. The RB just about gets in front of Lando Norris. Oh, and Carlos Sainz has been caught. He's going to have to wait as Carlos Sainz until there's at least a little bit of a gap for him to jump into. Just left that little bit later than you'd have hoped. Tsunoda is actually the first driver out on the track, so Tsunoda's going to lead the way. Esteban Ocon behind. So Ocon just coming around in turn 4. Gabriel Bortoleto is out on track. Isaac Hadjar yet to have set a lap time in the second qualifying session. Has been pretty swift though, Hadjar, over the course of the weekend so far. Lando Norris decided to get out pretty early in the order, it has to be said. Piastri actually deciding to just stay in the pits. And I don't think that McLaren is going to move. So Piastri thinking a 26.2 is enough. I tend to agree with him, to be honest. Antonelli out on track as well. Third fastest at the moment, just behind Lando Norris, both on the timing sheets and out on track. Verstappen is there also. So Norris, Antonelli and Verstappen actually in the order on track that they're currently in the order on the timing sheets as well. Hamilton and Leclerc then behind them. Sainz is out on track. Doohan is just making his way to the end of the pit lane. It's a bit of a weird one. You kind of join the track between turns 1 and turn 2 here in Miami. So you don't have to really do turn 1. It's kind of a bit of a weird cut of turn 1 as you come out of the pits. Kind of come out straight into turn 2. Let's have a little look then. Alex Albon is coming out of the pits as Esteban Ocon is just... Oh, and Ocon gives a real shake through turn 2, and that is going to set him back a touch. He's going to lose a little bit of time and possibly even a little bit of confidence inside of that Haas car as Esteban Ocon as he comes through the first sector. So that might be Ocon done and dusted for qualifying, as yeah, it's a poor first sector. He's down on his own time and a 10th.5 down on Gabriel Bortoleto's 10th place time right now, and we're assuming that that's not going to be the 10th place time in a moment. So Ocon unfortunate. Isaac Hadjar has started his first and only flying lap that he's going to get on the board. Norris and Antonelli have started their flying laps too, so has Verstappen. Hamilton just coming across the start-finish line now. Keeping an eye on Esteban Ocon, though, as he's coming around. Gabriel Bortoleto also on the flying lap has just had to deal with Liam Lawson through that turn 14-15 section of the track. Albon, also a little bit of traffic for the Williams car. Here comes Yuki Tsunoda across the start-finish line as well. Hello, Hexeter. How's it going? Ocon comes across the line. It is 9th fastest, improved in the second and third sectors, the Haas car, but that first sector seems too far off, in my opinion, for Ocon to really make it through into this top 10. Hadjar goes a little bit wide at turn 17. So Isaac Hadjar has improved in Sector 1 and Sector 2, but it's only 10th fastest. Slots in behind Ocon, ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and surely that won't be enough with George Russell now rattling around in his Mercedes car. Here comes Russell, 13th fastest at the moment. But a much better first sector from George Russell. Jack Doohan has also improved his first sector behind as well, so Ocon and Hadjar, even Tsunoda right now under pressure. You could drag Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon into that as well. Nobody is safe right at the moment. Here comes George Russell, going much quicker than Isaac Hadjar's 10th place time at the moment. Liam Lawson also quicker through the first sector. Jack Doohan is 0.03 of a second down on Isaac Hadjar as he comes through the middle part of the lap. It's going to be very tight indeed for Jack Doohan. Here comes Russell, goes third fastest. And that's much more like it from George Russell, isn't it? 0.3 of a second off Oscar Piastri's time. Here comes Jack Doohan. Is it going to be good enough for the top 10? No, it's only 14th fastest. He lost quite a bit in that final sector, did Jack Doohan. So Hadjar is going to be out. Doohan is going to be out. Here comes Liam Lawson. Not good enough either. Stays 15th. And Hamilton is out of qualifying in the Ferrari. He's going to start 12th on the grid after taking a podium place earlier on today in the sprint. Hamilton out in Q2. He made a mistake through turn 2 and lost him about a couple of tenths. And yeah, that's gonna really hurt for Lewis Hamilton. Out in 12th place. Was there also another mistake down in turn 17? Yeah, big lockup for Lewis Hamilton down towards turn 17 as well. Completely missed the apex. So Hamilton, a mistake in turn 2 and a mistake in turn 17. And you just can't get away with making 2 mistakes when the times are so tight at the moment. Esteban Ocon, though, a man who I thought that time was nowhere near good enough. He actually managed to just about do it. Esteban Ocon through in 10th place. Universal Studios Great Britain. Yeah, I heard a podcast about that, actually. I mean, I'll probably visit it at some point, but isn't it not being built for like 10 years anyway? And it's in the UK, so it will be finished late, and therefore it will probably not be built, maybe in my lifetime. It wouldn't surprise me. No. Oscar Piastri then, quickest of anybody. He gets through in first spot. Norris and Russell. I'm not saying that I predicted that top 3, but it is the top 3 right now. Will it be the top 3 once we get through to Q3? Antonelli will be trying to think not so much. Antonelli 4th fastest, Verstappen 5th fastest. Both of the Williams cars through once more. Carlos Sainz very much redeemed that bad Q2 session from sprint qualifying with a very good Q2 session in the full qualifying. Charles Leclerc showing that the Ferrari just, even on his best, isn't actually brilliant here in Miami this weekend. Just about got ahead of Yuki Tsunoda and ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton as well, who we'll get to. But Esteban Ocon was the final driver to make it through to Q3. So the 5 drivers that we've lost and the 5 drivers who know their starting place for tomorrow. Isaac Hadjar starts 11th. Lewis Hamilton starts in 12th place. They start side by side again. They love being next to one another, to Hadjar and Hamilton. Gabriel Bortoleto starts in 13th place. Jack Doohan starts in 14th place. And Liam Lawson is going to start in 15th place. Those 5 drivers through to Q2, but not quite quick enough for Q3. It was Nico Hülkenberg in 16th place, Fernando Alonso in 17th, Pierre Gasly in 18th, Lance Stroll in 19th, and Oliver Behrman, who dropped out in 20th place, who were the 5 drivers that we lost in the first part of qualifying. But this is the bit we've all been waiting for, isn't it? This is the one where we need to see who is going to be starting on the front row tomorrow. We saw that maybe starting second is the optimal place because Oscar Piastri was able to just shuffle Kimi Antonelli out of the way when it came to the opening lap of the sprint race earlier on today. And Liam Lawson had a problem with the battery, it sounds like. So Liam Lawson, problem with the battery inside of his RB car. And Isaac Hadjar also frustrated. So close. So close. 0.02 of a second, the difference between Hadjar and Ocon. And it's very, very tight. You know, it's very tight throughout the entire Grand Prix weekends that we've had so far this year. And yeah, Liam Lawson actually nods his head as he comes across the line. He knows that it wasn't good enough. And he just a little bit of oversteer through turn 2 and the battery problem that he said he had as well. Yeah, wasn't quite good enough, was it, for Isaac Hadjar or Liam Lawson? Frustrating for both of them. Williams, though, smash of Do I want $500? I mean, I wouldn't say no, you know. Would certainly help with the house move that's going on. Am I on Twitch? Unfortunately not, because I'm on like temporary internet. Once I move house, yes. Lando Norris still has a problem having a good start from the front. That's very true. Well, it's not. Yes. Yeah. More often than not, he's a little bit of a frustrating one. Here we are then. 12 minutes on the board. 10 drivers in the final part of qualifying. Lewis Hamilton already making his way out of the Ferrari garage and towards the Ferrari hospitality area. Helmet still on, so you know that it's not the best of times to be Lewis Hamilton when you see him in that kind of mood. Building an F1 Lego set. Which one? Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes. Are there any more? Didn't Alfa Romeo have one at one point or something? And there is Lily, Alex Albon's partner. And Zach Brown saying that he thinks the top 5 are going to be the top 5. Whether or not they're going to be in the same order, we'll have to wait and see. Piastri and Norris will certainly be battling it out. Verstappen, 5th, will want to get into the picture. Both of the Mercedes cars. The Mercedes cars do look quick. They just are pretty swift this weekend. It would be a bit of a surprise if they weren't able to make their way through. If I streamed on Twitch, would I still stream on YouTube? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Most certainly so. Oh, the little Lego sets. Yeah, I forgot about those ones. Yeah. Every team does technically have a Lego set. That is true, Edward. Oh, we've got Conman, Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, Antonelli, Russell. Antonelli ahead of Russell. Very nice indeed. 12 minutes are on the board. Lando Norris is actually already making his way down the pit lane. So is Oscar Piastri. So the McLaren drivers wanting to get out pretty soon. But actually Max Verstappen has still managed to get out in front of both of the McLarens. But that just goes to show a lot of these drivers want to get at least a banker lap in here in Miami. Thank you for liking the stream, Hexter. If you could hit the like button on the stream, that'd be absolutely amazing. Maybe subscribe if you're new to the channel as well. Massively helps us out. But Ocon, Tsunoda, Leclerc, the first 3 drivers out. Verstappen, as I say, ahead of the 2 McLarens. Verstappen and the 2 Mercedes cars, though, do look like they could get in the mix, don't they? Lando Norris's disco ball helmet. Just a print, but he does have an actual version of the helmet which is made with real glass, like a real disco ball. Of course, not allowed to use that during the Grand Prix for obvious reasons, but very cool helmet for Lando Norris once again here in Miami. Max Verstappen has been on pole 2 out of the last 3 races. So if Verstappen can make it 3 out of 4, wouldn't surprise me too much. But it feels like the McLarens do have that little bit of an edge here this weekend. And even the Mercedes cars have a tiny bit of an edge over Verstappen. But as I say, Verstappen's been on pole 2 out of the last 3 races and seems to be able to turn it on when he needs to. Here comes Max Verstappen. Esteban Ocon is actually going to get us underway. His Max Verstappen's teammate Yuki Tsunoda is just coming across the start-finish line as well. So let's keep an eye on Tsunoda's lap times, but I am interested to see what Verstappen can do. Charles Leclerc has just come across the start-finish line as well to start his first flying lap. Sainz, Albon and Antonelli are out on track also. Antonelli at the back of the pack right now. George Russell deciding against coming out in the pack right now. Piastri has just started his flying lap. So Verstappen is going to finish the first sector. Well, first of those top three that we are kind of keeping an eye on. Piastri and Norris. Antonelli is going to be in the mix. Verstappen does go quickest in the first sector ahead of Ocon, Tsunoda and Leclerc's first sector times. Ocon comes round to complete the middle sector in a 33.4. Will Yuki Tsunoda go quicker than that? No, Tsunoda actually slower than Esteban Ocon through the middle sector of the lap. Charles Leclerc also slower than Ocon through the middle part of the lap. So Ocon getting it together in the middle sector by all means, but then Max Verstappen comes along and does indeed go purple in that middle sector. Oscar Piastri can't match Max's time in the first sector. Neither can Lando Norris. Neither the second sector for Piastri. So Verstappen is currently going quickest of anybody. Charles Leclerc peels into the pit lane, but Verstappen is going to come across the start-finish line with a 126.4. Lando Norris has gone quicker in the middle sector than Verstappen, but Piastri is a tenth and a half or so down, so Piastri is not going to match his lap time from before, is only second fastest by 20 hundredths or 200ths of a second. Here comes Lando Norris then, was quickest in the middle sector. Can he go to the top? 3 thousandths of a second slower than Max Verstappen. So it's Verstappen top of the timing sheets for now. Carlos Sainz slots into fourth place. Kimi Antonelli is running around. Oh yeah, George Russell's invisible on the map. That's why I couldn't see George Russell. Russell is out there on a flying lap. Antonelli coming around the final couple of corners, goes fourth fastest. George Russell is actually following Kimi Antonelli around. So Russell is going to come across the start-finish line right now to go sixth fastest and nearly 7 tenths adrift. And 4 tenths adrift of his teammate is George Russell. Not very good at all. Verstappen then. Again, just Max Verstappen turns it on when he needs to. That's why George Russell went super deep in turn 17, locked up the front left tyre of his Mercedes car. Did Lando Norris do the same? He did. Lando Norris with a big lockup in turn 17. So Lando Norris would have been well up on Max Verstappen. And then Charles Leclerc had his lap time deleted for also going super deep into turn 17. So Leclerc, Norris, and Russell all just overcooking their front left tyre into turn 17. In fact, Charles Leclerc was so bad, he just decided to give up on the lap anyway. It wasn't worth him going around again for the sake of it. So Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, all within 200ths of a second of one another. Norris with a lot of time in hand because of that mistake in the final sector. Piastri wasn't too swift through the first sector, so you'd think he can improve there. Antonelli was fourth fastest. Albon was fifth fastest. Russell sixth. Carlos Sainz seventh. So the Williams is still looking best of the midfield pack. Esteban Ocon, though, was quicker than Yuki Tsunoda. So Tsunoda really not quite there. Needs to improve, doesn't it, for Tsunoda? But it's so hard because that Red Bull car is so difficult to drive and we just don't know where it's going to be. It is very, very tight indeed. And Oscar Piastri there was the mistake. bouncing around Oscar Piastri, getting all over the curbs, and that's where he would have lost some time. Checking the suspension of that McLaren works inside of his papaya car. Lando Norris had the better of Verstappen for the majority of the lap. It was that turn 17 that did cost cost Lando Norris provisional pole. Only Verstappen quicker through turn 1, turn 2, 4, 5, 6. Lando Norris quicker everywhere else. Max is somehow still ahead. He just does. He knows. He knows how to do it. Knows how to do it. Will I be streaming the race tomorrow? Yes, indeed. I'm live for every single qualifying and Grand Prix, as well as all of the sprint sessions as well. And one day, hopefully, I'll be able to stream the free practice sessions too. That'll be a little bit more fun. But we will indeed be live once again for the race tomorrow. Here we are then. The cars are coming out once again. A queue forms in the pit lane once more. At least Yuki got into Q3. Checo was out in Q1 most of last season. I mean, Yuki was in Q1 yesterday. So, let's have a think. But yeah. Tsunoda through. Needs to get in and amongst the Williamses though, right? Surely Tsunoda can't be seen to be had a good qualify if he's outperformed by both of the Williams cars. That would not be a good sign. Here we go then. Tsunoda has actually come out first of anybody, so just wants the clean air, does the Japanese driver. It's then Max Verstappen just behind, Ocon and Leclerc, then Norris and Piastri as well. So Tsunoda just coming around turn 13 towards turn 14. Verstappen towards turn 11. Ocon and Leclerc there too. Lando Norris coming around turn 7. And let's see what Lando Norris and Piastri, can they do it? Or is Verstappen going to be able to clinch another pole position? As I say, he's been on pole 2 out of the last 3 races. As much as we say the McLaren car looks the quickest this season, certainly does in race trim, but Verstappen has been able to put in the qualifying laps of late. That has just been able to put him a little bit above. And it is that little bit above, 3 thousandths of a second separating Verstappen and Norris at the moment. Here comes Verstappen then to start his final flying lap of the weekend. Of course, the race. Oh, and it's a mistake down towards turn 1 for Verstappen. So Verstappen is going to have to really, really battle that Red Bull car for every single millimeter now if he's going to make up more time than he's lost there. It's a big wobble from Max Verstappen, but let's have a little look at this first sector time. Still 200ths of a second quicker than himself. Goes fastest in the first sector, does Verstappen. That goes to show that he's going to absolutely rinse this Red Bull for every single thing that it has got. Yuki Tsunoda has come through the first sector and the second sector now for Tsunoda. It is green, at least for the Japanese driver, so he is improving. He's got quite a bit to improve, though, if he's going to get ahead of the likes of Albon and Sainz, but we'll keep up to date with it. Verstappen, a couple attempts quicker than himself, and Lando Norris has had a really poor first sector in the McLaren car, so Verstappen is going quicker. Lando Norris has actually gone slower in that first sector. Tsunoda has been able to find enough to get himself into 5th place for now. So let's see if he stays there. Max Verstappen goes even quicker. It's a 26.2 from Max Verstappen, and that has set the standard high. Lando Norris does go through the middle sector quicker than Verstappen, but still About a hundredth of a second below Verstappen's time. Piastri is well off it. Piastri's 0.3 of a second down. So Lando Norris is going to have to be the McLaren to spoil the Red Bull party. Can he be that as he comes around the final corner? No. He stays second, fastest by 0.06 of a second. Piastri's not going to be able to do it either. He was too far down through that middle sector. And even though he goes quicker, in the third sector, he stays in third place. Antonelli is a 10.5 down. George Russell has also had a pretty poor first sector and is 0.3 of a second down as he comes through the middle sector, George Russell. So it's looking very good. If you're a Max Verstappen fan, Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz have put themselves 4th and 5th. Tsunoda's now dropped all the way down to 9th. Here comes Antonelli to split the McLarens to go third fastest. He goes quicker than Piastri. And here comes George Russell then. The final car across the line, and George Russell 5th fastest. So it is Verstappen who gets top spot. And Verstappen, he's just able to do it. Why do I keep doubting him? He does it every single weekend at this point, Max Verstappen. He just finds that 10th of a second that nobody else can seemingly find. Stunning stuff from Max Verstappen. Once again, it has to be said. Lando Norris, much better. Second on the grid for him. Antonelli, it's pole position for the sprint, but only third fastest. Still better than his teammate, though, Antonelli. Does seem to have the advantage. And Lando Norris, again, a mistake in turn 17 for Norris. Both of his flying laps, Lando Norris, a mistake in turn 17. The first time he went too deep. The second time he got all over the curbs. Lando Norris, maybe pole position was there, but he will start in second place. We actually saw that second place was beneficial for him. For Piastri in the sprint race earlier today. So maybe Lando Norris will be able to do the same thing and learn from his teammate. As I say, Antonelli starting third, Oscar Piastri starting 4th. So they start side by side with one another again, just a row back from earlier on today. George Russell starts 5th. Carlos Sainz starts ahead of his teammate in 6th place. Alex Albon in 7th place. Charles Leclerc's Ferrari all the way down in 8th place behind both of the Williamses. Not where you want to be. Esteban Ocon was 9th. And yes, Yuki Tsunoda made it through to Q3, but he was the slowest driver in Q3. And by a considerable amount, he was outperformed by Esteban Ocon by a 10th there. We've also seen Isaac Hadjar, Lewis Hamilton, Gabriel Bortoleto, Jack Doohan and Liam Lawson drop out in Q2, as well as Hulkenberg, Alonso, Gasly, Stroll and Behrman drop out in Q1. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you for watching. Massively appreciate you all stopping by. If you could hit the like button on your way out, that'd be incredible. Maybe subscribe to the channel if you're new, and we'll be live once again tomorrow for the Miami Grand Prix. Will Max Verstappen be able to turn it into a victory? Will he be able to go back up to the top of the championship standings? We'll have to wait and see.